Welcome to the Goth Academy podcast. Hi everybody, hello Anke.
Hello Gil.
You just told me your last name, but I can't pronounce it.
It's very Dutch. It's Bosma.
I have a master's in cultural analysis, and that's basically philosophy with literary studies.
And you are here for another Harry Potter conversation. This is our third podcast conversation about Harry Potter. And you want to talk about Snape. Snape.
Yes.
Horrible guy.
Horrible guy. Total asshole.
Asshole. He emotionally tortures Harry Potter.
Right.
Talks ill about his dead parents. This child that has never known his parents. Just like...
Not about both his parents, of course.
It may have escaped your notice, but life isn't fair. Your blessed father knew that. In fact, he frequently sought to...
My father was a great man.
Your father was a swine.
I'm cringing every time I read what he says about, like, whispering horrible things about his parents so nobody else can see, and singling him out for no fault of his own, just because he can't get over the fact that a woman preferred another guy. And he was a racist until it affected him. Oh, now the fact that I'm racist, now it affects me. So now I'm not racist anymore. This is like Republicans coming out of the closet. Now they're no longer against the gay rights. So this is the person
Yes.
that you want to defend.
Yes.
Snape. Serious
Yes.
Snape. This horrible guy.
Severus Snape. Not serious.
Severus Snape.
The
Sorry.
two men are
Sorry,
very similar,
Severus.
but not the same.
Mr. Potter. Our new celebrity. Tell me, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?
Why do you like Snape?
Well, I kind of wanted to start by saying that I think he's both redeemable in-universe, but I particularly like him as a literary character. And I often feel that in discussions about characters, the two get a bit conflated.
Let's start with the second one. And I didn't mention it, but you are a long-time patron.
Oh, yeah, very good of you to say, yeah.
And we've met in Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
We've hung out, we had a meal, and you're a big Harry Potter fan.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Okay, so let's start redeemable in this universe. Why do you think that he is redeemable?
Clearly, fame isn't everything, is it, Mr. Potter?
I mean, there's a certain logic, of course, that fits in the books. Certain things that are illogical in our own world are logical in the books of Harry Potter.
For example?
So, for example, every year they have a mystery and they always find the answer at the end of the school year. Right? So you could say, well, that's ridiculous. But it's not really make sense to question that in the universe of the books, because that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, this is storytelling. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. And I think you made a really good point in the first Dumbledore podcast, where you said that because the logic of the books, the later books, they're very different books than the earlier books. So when you read the later books, and all of a sudden you start thinking, hey, wait, but how did that work at the beginning? Because the logic of the book has shifted from kind of a parody to more of a metaphor, I guess.
Okay. Or allegory, or something like that.
Yeah, or an allegory, indeed, yeah. So I thought that was a good point, and that's just why I want to split the two in universe and as a character.
Okay, so in universe, he still misbehaves and prejudges an 11-year-old boy who did nothing to him and decides to mistreat him.
Right. Yes, well, of course, bullying is bad, but it doesn't compare to fighting the Nazis, I would say. So he has certainly flaws, but I think his good characteristic, which is that he literally puts his life on the line in order to fight Voldemort, that's more important and that should weigh heavier. Okay. So I wouldn't say he's flawless, but I think he's the fact that he fights the Nazis is more important, I would say.
Okay, let me push back on that. When did he decide that he wanted to fight the Nazis? He was a Nazi. He was a Nazi. He wasn't on the fence or anything. He was a party member.
He was a party member.
Yes,
for sure.
and then the person that he cared about was now next in line to get hurt.
Right.
He didn't care when other people went to the camps or whatever. Just when the single person that he cared about. Now it's like, oh, now I've seen the light.
The fact is that he did change his mind, and of course the reason why he changed his mind, that maybe not the noblest thing, but it's still very important, If we say to every Nazi, or every racist, every alt-right person, as soon as you join the dark side, there's no way to come back, or only if you realize your fault in a certain way, only if you change your mind in such a specific way that you all of a sudden don't believe anything you grew up with, don't believe anything you've been indoctrinated with. That's the only way you can actually become a redeemable person. I mean, that would be very problematic if we stick to that, because then how can we get allies, and how can we convince other people to join the right side?
This is a very, 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 very good point. Very good point. This is like, so I'm vegan.
Yes.
And I don't care why people...
now, sorry.
You're eating cheese? No! And I don't care why people become vegan. It can be because of the environmental damage that this industry, the animal food industry is creating. It can be for moral reasons, and it can be for healthcare reasons. I don't care.
Right.
You don't have to repent or anything if you move from the dark side to the light side.
Yeah.
I'm all right with that. Okay, so this is a very, very good point. Okay.
And also about the bullying, I would want to come back to that a little bit. Of course, Snape was bullied himself when he was young by James Potter, the father of the boy he's bullying right now. And that was a very traumatic. So, I don't know, you could ask Noga about this, but Snape now has to live in the place where he had a lot of trauma when he was younger, and he has to walk by the place that has his worst memory every day. He has to be in the classrooms where he was traumatized.
You're just like your father. Lazy, arrogant.
Don't say a word against my father.
Weak.
I'm not weak.
And actually, I think you might like an extra hot take I have on this issue, because you don't like Dumbledore. Because for Dumbledore, it's very beneficial if Snape continues to live in this trauma. Because of his trauma, because the mistakes Snape has made, he is still working for Dumbledore. So for Dumbledore, it's actually a good thing that Snape stays at Hogwarts, where he has to relive his traumas over and over again, so that he continues to work for Dumbledore.
Yeah, and so to your first point, this is also a good point. Like if you go back to your high school or whatever, or your hometown, my hometown. When I go back to my hometown, where I had experiences that I do not like to relive so much, right. I always feel like. Or you meet someone from your childhood that you had unpleasant experiences with. It's like you go back in 1 second you go back to be that person, and you have to fight it. It's a really, really unpleasant experience.
Right, you get the feeling that you had back then. You get it back.
Yes.
You once again feel like less self-worth, and yeah.
Yes.
Vengeance is sweet. I hoped I'd be the one to catch you.
Yes. So it's a good point, but I would say that he's a grown man. He's a grown man, and it's not that he just like has lapses. He's very, very consistent in his mistreatment of Harry Potter. And I don't know, maybe he needs to act in some way so to keep his his cover, but it seems that he goes above and beyond the line of duty, and that he enjoys torturing a child. It's not just like in the spur of the moment.
No,
every
exactly.
year, every month, every week, every day.
Yeah. Yeah, once again, I think Snape is certainly a very flawed character. And I don't think this should be an excuse, but I do think it contextualizes it and gives a reason for that. Because he's basically taking revenge on James Potter by bullying his son, which is wrong.
Yeah.
I won't defend that. But I will say that it's understandable in universe, in the sense that, I mean, James Potter was not only the guy who bullied him for years in a pretty terrible ways, but also the man that married the woman he loved. So can you imagine that you get bullied by someone every day? You have one friend in the whole world, and that friend leaves you and falls in love with your biggest bully.
Oh my goodness.
It's not good.
It's not good. I would destroy that child for the fruit of their love.
I mean, hopefully you wouldn't. But
yeah.
But I mean, I think that's an interesting part of his character, and it makes him understandable, if not redeemable, in this particular instance.
I think also when you mention like in universe, I think that like in this universe, there's it's a more traditional world than our world, and who your parents are is more important than it is to us now.
Right.
It's like right. So like most Slytherins are children of Slytherins. Of course, there are exceptions, but this is basically the way it goes. In most Gryffindors, you have like legacies of Gryffindors and stuff like that. So I guess in this universe, it makes more sense for him to keep holding that grudge against the child of his tormentor.
Yeah, and there's an interesting tension there in the books, because on the one hand, J.K. Rowling is saying, or the message of the books is, it doesn't matter who your parents are, but on the other, that's very important the whole time. So there's an interesting tension there within the logic of the book as well, that it shouldn't matter who your parents are, but then Harry finds out he's related to the Pavrels, who give him the cloak of invisibility. So there's a lot of things going on indeed with who your parents are and who your family is.
Right, it's biblical a little bit. It's like there's a biblical saying, "Avot achlu boser, shinei banim tikhena." Like the parents ate the fruit, the sugary fruit, and it's the children's teeth who are rotting.
Right. Yes, indeed. And also another thing of the in-book logic that I find very particular about Snape's character is that he's still in love with his high school crush in his 40s, but apparently everyone is still obsessed with their high school crush years after. I mean,
who else?
Harry marries his high school crush, Ginny, and Hermione and Ron are apparently meant to be his parents. Harry's parents met in high school, fell in love, got married immediately after. Dumbledore, of course, was in love with Grindelwald when he was younger, or at least that's implied.
Also, I want to go back to what you said, that Snape is redeemable because he does take on maybe the second biggest task after Harry, just to be there every day with Voldemort and lie to his face every single day.
Right.
So that takes a lot of effort, a lot of skill, dedication.
Yeah, and also one of Snape's tasks is to kill Dumbledore. Spoiler. Lily was Snape's only friend ever, as far as we know, but Dumbledore is maybe the person who comes closest after that. And so Snape is responsible for the death of his first friend, and the only other person he can talk to right now asks him to kill him.
You must be the one to kill me, Severus. It is the only way. Only then will the Dark Lord trust you completely.
So, and that's also a task he does, and he has a lot of trouble with that. We can see in the Prince's Tale, where we see the memories of Snape, that this is something he really didn't want to do, and that he felt really was really difficult for him.
And what did you think about Snape being redeemed after all, when it's all said and done, in the eyes of Harry? I would not have named my son after this person, because okay, so as a character, that's one thing, but when that person has been your tormentor, like James Potter has been to Snape, now Snape has been Harry's tormentor, has been the most consistently horrible person in his life outside of Voldemort.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Umbridge came pretty close as well, I guess.
Yeah, but
yeah.
that was short. That was short-lived. There, she was like there for a book and a half or something.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't name my child after my tormentor, but I hold grudges, and I think what's kind of, I mean, again, I wouldn't name my child after Snape if I were Harry, but it does show that the cycle is kind of broken. So Harry does forgive, and this is again very biblical theme, you know. Yeah. So yeah, you can. There are other. He could have named his child after Hagrid, for example. Or maybe he could have let Ginny pick a name. I don't know.
Yeah, she's there also. Yeah.
She's like, what? You gave our child another name that I don't agree with? Okay. But that's also why I like Snape as a literary character. Because it's complicated.
He does not want to kill Harry Potter. If he wanted to kill Harry Potter, he had plenty of chances to do it.
Right.
And he acted differently. Mm-hmm. And we should commend a person for not killing another person. A great guy, such a great guy for not killing his child.
Yeah, I mean, that's just amazing. I mean, the amount of times I wanted to kill a child and didn't do it, really, I should get a medal.
For me, I admit that I've had lapses, and not every day I manage not to kill other people. Someday, 50-50.
It's hard.
It's 50-50.
Hard. Yeah.
Today has been a good day so far.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, there's still a lot of hours in the day, so yeah. People of Tel Aviv do not feel too comfortable. After this conversation, I'm going out, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Stay strong. In universe, if I were a character in the books, I probably wouldn't like Snape, though I would think he's redeemable as, that's the argument I just made. But I really like him as a literary character. He's probably one of my favorites of all time. And also very relevant today, also kind of what we talked about earlier about radicalizing and de-radicalizing, how that works. I think the character of Snape shows that really well. And also exactly because you said there's a mystery with Snape. So you think, is he a good guy or a bad guy? It's revealed at the end, which makes it incredibly satisfying to pay attention to Snape on a reread. Yeah, I love rereading books. I love reading books knowing the end and seeing all the clues that lead up to that. And Snape's got to be one of the best characters when it comes to that. For example, at the end of book 3 in the Shrieking Shack, he's so mad at Sirius. He's like, oh, how I had hoped I would be the one to find you. And he says, like, give me a reason and I'll kill you, something like that.
Give me a reason. I beg you.
Severus, don't be a fool.
And that's, in the end, that's because he thinks Sirius is responsible for Lily's death.
I didn't even think about that in the rereading.
Yeah, that's why you have to reread it every year, Gil, like I do.
And now this is I have a rereading project with my daughter. I have to wait an entire year between books because she has a tender heart and it's a dark story. It's a dark story.
Yeah, did you read book 4 with her already or not?
Yeah, she's gonna be 9 soon. We finished book 4, and when we got to the final few chapters, I must say the chapters when Voldemort comes back, some of the best chapters in the entire series. She sat on me and held my hand forcefully for like 30 minutes straight when I read to her that part.
Right, I can see. Yeah.
That was powerful. That was a very powerful scene. So I just reread the first 4 more than once. Yeah.
Yeah. So next year you can reread all 4 first books with her, and then read 5.
This is a problem. Harry Potter is so good for children that we are having trouble getting into other books and other stories.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is just so good, and a lot of stuff just like pales in comparison. So you just have to pick like the best of the best books so they can match up to Harry Potter. It's I'm not even kidding. This is, you feel it falls flat. It's not the same.
Yeah, it's so immersive as well. You're fully in the world when you read it. Yeah.
Completely. Okay, so that was a good point. So he was mad at Sirius because he was thinking that he was going to avenge Lily right then and there.
Yes, indeed. But then it turns out to be Peter Pettigrew who was the secret keeper, and he keeps Peter Pettigrew as a slave in his house, basically, in the last book. So that's very... Oh, yeah. It's only mentioned shortly at the beginning of book 6, when there's a chapter that you can see Snape is promising to kill Dumbledore. I found it so compelling, as I said, rereading his character, and also because he's so conflicted and so dramatic, and
very dramatic.
it's yeah, exactly. I mean, he's like, when we talk about George R.R. Martin and how he writes characters, you know, we always take up this quote about the human heart in conflict with itself, and I think that's really of all the characters in Harry Potter, that probably characterizes Snape the most. He has a lot of conflict within himself, and he has a lot of difficult choices to make. And that's why I think it's interesting that he chooses to switch sides because of an emotional reason, and not just because he's a good person. That's better in real life, but that's less interesting to read, I think.
That is true. And he just and his decision to switch sides just has made his life very, very difficult. Just like day to day, he has to constantly lie and hide his emotions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he blames Harry for all of that and starts bullying him. Maybe, but of course it's his own fault that it came to that, actually, which is really good about him, about his character, about the way it's written. So because of his own mistakes, because he pushed away his only friend that he had, because he chose to fight for Voldemort, that's what caused his friend to die. That's what caused Lily to die.
Why does him choosing Voldemort led her to die? I don't remember that part.
Okay, so you know about the prophecy about Harry Potter. So Trelawney tells this prophecy to Dumbledore, and Snape is the one who listens in and tells that information to Voldemort.
Okay.
Yeah, so he is really directly responsible for which I think is really good, because I mean, you could argue that either way, if he had just been working for Voldemort or he had just been a Death Eater, that he would have been part of the problem that leads to the killing of innocent people like Lily Evans. But in this book, he's made directly responsible for that. Yeah.
And he can't check it off. He can't just imagine as if it didn't happen or anything. This is like you told the guy who to kill.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Because I think his relationship with Lily is also pretty problematic and unhealthy, and a lot of people have a big problem with that as well. I also messaged you earlier that there are some comparisons worth making between Snape and incels.
Boom, go for it.
I mean, Snape is certainly not an incel, I would say. I think it's kind of... because incels are so all around us in the media all the time, we think about it really fast, I think. But it's a bit problematic to say every man in media who has an unrequited love is an incel. Because
he's also, I think he's a virgin. Think so?
I mean, I assume, I don't know what he gets up to, but
but we never heard about any other female that he was interested in or has spent any time with at all. And and most of the teachers there, if not all of them, don't have any relationships other than professional relationships. So why do you think that he could be an incel, and why do you think that maybe not? You were I cut you off when you were starting to state your case.
Right. So the incels, first of all, are a community, an online community who really formed an identity around being an incel and have their own ideology. So Snape in the books, he would be young in the 70s when the internet didn't exist, and J.K. Rowling wrote it in the 90s when the incels weren't a thing. So in that sense, it's very anachronistic to say he would be an incel, and he also doesn't share the same philosophy of incels, because incels hate all women,
Right.
and we don't see Snape being misogynistic necessarily.
No. Equal opportunity hater.
Indeed, yeah, he hates everyone except for Lily Evans. Yeah, and the question is also, does he feel entitled to her? Because that's a big part of incels, is that they feel that they deserve to have a girlfriend and they deserve to have sex, and they are wrongly deprived of that.
Yes.
So this combination of entitlement and victimhood that you also very often see, for example, in the alt-right. So you're entitled to more privilege than people of color, for example, and so you're the victim of them.
Yes.
That's a very similar
yes,
narrative.
You have the right to be popular, and if somebody doesn't like you, then it means that there's a white genocide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's basically how that logic, quotation marks,
One
work.
time, a former YouTuber told me that I was infringing on her free speech because I unfollowed her on Twitter. Apparently, she had like a way to find out who is unfollowing her, and she told me that I'm against free speech because I unfollowed her.
Yes, exactly.
Without telling anybody. It's not like I bad-mouthed her. Just like, I don't want to read this anymore. No, you have to read it, otherwise you are hurting me, actively hurting me.
Yeah, exactly. That's conflating two fully different things.
Yeah, I don't have to
and
like
making
you.
point. No, exactly. And it's indeed, again, that entitlement. Like, not only should I be able to say anything I want, other people should also listen to me.
And agree, mostly.
And agree as well, right.
So you think that do you feel that he does feel entitled, or not necessarily?
A little bit. If you read The Prince's Tale, for example, at one point he kind of voices his fears to Lily about how popular James Potter is and that James has a crush on her. And then he starts saying, I won't let you, ... I don't know, fall in love with him or something. And Lily gets very angry at that. And she's like, you won't let me? Excuse me? That's not how it works. So you can see that there's a little bit of entitlement there where Snape does feel like she is his best friend and only his best friend. And in some ways it's understandable where that comes from, because the only other friends he has are all Death Eaters. But that's of course also very problematic. That's not how a healthy relationship looks at all. But on the other side, Lily does talk back to him. And the relationship is not only Snape wanting her, which is part of it, but it's also them having conversations about the difficulties they face at home. They are friends for a lot of years from when they were really young. And that's what makes this a more complex and interesting story. Because you see a lot of things on a lot of movies or whatever feature a guy that's the main character, and at the end of the story, some random girl who maybe had 2 lines falls for him for no apparent reasons.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think this relationship between Snape and Lily is much less problematic than a lot of other things we see, because they're both full-rounded characters. And every time Snape does feel entitled or makes a mistake like that, Lily talks back. When he calls her a mudblood, she stops being friends with him. So that's actually, I think, a good story in the sense that it shows that it's wrong to behave like this and that there are consequences when you behave like this.
Right. And being, let's say, incely, alt-righty, usually the looking down on women is very systematic, and if they talk back, that's not gonna vibe well for the males in the group. There was a story a couple of years ago about women in the alt-right complaining that the males in the alt-right.
Yeah, I saw that.
You remember that? Yeah, just like they're not reading us well. It's like, oh no, no,
No,
no, I can't believe it.
color be surprised.
Yes,
Oh,
no, they don't respect our opinions. I was shocked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it does seem that Snape, for the most part, doesn't treat women significantly differently. He also doesn't blame Lily for the fact that she he blames himself, I think, also for how it went wrong and what went wrong. Not for naught is the chapter where he calls her a mudblood, where Harry sees that memory. It's called Snape's worst memory. And on first reading we think, oh, that's because he gets bullied by James Potter.
That's what I thought.
But on second reading,
okay,
we realize, or some of us realize, or on third reading,
you realize. Yeah,
I personally, as a big fan of Snape, realize that it's because this is the moment where he called Lily a mudblood, and this is the moment where she decided she didn't want to be friends with him anymore. He also can't stand the word mudblood after this. He calls people out when they use it.
Really?
He doesn't like it at all.
Who did he call out?
The very specific example is the portrait of Phineas Nigellus.
Don't remember this guy.
It's the portrait that has a portrait in Dumbledore's office and in Grimmauld Place.
Okay.
And the
Grimmauld Place,
the
that's
gang,
where the gang meet, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So in the beginning of book 7, they meet there, and the gang takes the picture of Phineas Nigellus with them because they're afraid he's otherwise going to tell some things. I don't know. And then Phineas Nigellus, the portrait, starts being a kind of a spy for Snape on the kids. So this is also how Snape finds Harry and is able to give him the sword of Gryffindor.
But so the portrait said the word mudblood, and
he refers to Hermione as a mudblood, and then
what did Snape say?
Cuts him off, saying, "Don't use that word."
Okay. There's a lot. Do you know that there's like a burgeoning industry of deprogrammed alt-right and other kind of similar mindsets, and I think it plays well into this into Snape, because it's like you have to, when it gets personalized, that's a good trigger to let go of the hate.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So when people meet people who are racist and in this radicalized group, when they meet someone of color and that person of color is nice to them, then that can be a way for them to kind of get out of that. Yeah, so in that sense, it makes a lot of sense that his personal connection to Lily is what gets him out of that at the end. And that also, I think, shows that he doesn't feel entitled to her, but actually loves her. Because, I mean, Dumbledore also says that to him after Lily dies. He says, if you really loved her, then what you have to do next is very obvious. And so what he has to do next is continue to fight for the good side, despite the fact that the woman he loved is dead now.
Yeah.
That's actually also what Voldemort, at the end when Voldemort and Harry have their final duel, they talk about Snape a little bit, and Voldemort says Snape didn't love Lily, he merely desired her. And then Harry says, no, he didn't, he loved her, and from the moment you went after her, that's when he started fighting for Dumbledore and not for you anymore.
18 years? No. How old is Harry by the final book?
He's 17.
17. So 17 years.
17.
So 17 years of dedication for a person who does not exist anymore.
Right.
Right. So he can just basically say, I don't have to prove to you, Dumbledore, that I loved her. I'm going to just do something else. He can literally do whatever he wants.
Right, yeah. He can just say, well, too bad. Lost that one.
Yeah.
Well, because that's also an incel thing, that all women are basically replaceable, you know, they're not full humans, they're just dehumanized women that they have a right to, and for Snape, Lily is clearly a very specific full human. That was not only his crush but his friend.
Now I'm starting to like him.
Well, he's still an asshole.
Still an asshole. I have to remind myself that.
But that's fine. I mean, that's what I like about the book as well. Also because Dumbledore is also kind of an asshole sometimes, but he's still a good person, you know. Apparently that's possible. That's something the book learns us as well.
Both of them are arrogant. I personally don't like arrogance because it's just like a mask. and just like a decision that you have to make to be arrogant towards other people. You can be successful or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's just like a decision. I'm going to look down on this person or these people or everybody, and it always seems to me like a weak decision that says more about the person looking down on other people than about the other people. Both of them have that trait that I dislike, looking down on students who don't know everything that you know. Okay, are you better than everybody at all of the facets of magic? No, you're just better than everybody at potions.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So
and
relax.
occlumency, right?
Yeah, occlumency is very. Yeah, that's maybe is even better at that. So just like.
But that's
relax.
an interesting connection, right? So he's very good at occlumency, at closing his mind, and he's also very closed in other ways. And arrogance is one way to close yourself off from other people. And both of them have that, and in both cases, it's traceable to a trauma in their youth, I guess.
Yes. Maintain, keep your distance. And the only person, as you mentioned, the only two people who he's really close with have seen him being weak.
He intends to hunt them down now, to kill them. Hide her. Hide them all. I beg you.
What will you give me in exchange, Severus?
Anything.
I wish he would have learned the lesson that it's better to show yourself to the world, and then you'll get to be closer to. Because he could have found someone else to fall in love with. I don't know. The world is big. There's a lot of magical fishes in the sea.
Yeah, yeah. But that's also what I like as how he's written as a character, because he is written as a very miserable man. It's a very tragic story in a sense, but it's not like his behavior is accepted or approved by J.K. Rowling. She very clearly shows that, well, if you choose to close yourself off, then you're going to be very lonely.
Right, who wants to see me take off Snivelly's trousers?
You can understand why he wouldn't be impressed with the Gryffindor's, claim to fame of being the heroes.
Yeah, exactly.
Of the story.
Though I do think that Harry has a lot in common with Snape in many ways. Also coming from a difficult childhood, and in that sense, he's more like Snape than like his father, for example. But he forms a contrast with him, because Harry has chances to pick the easy way and join friends with Slytherins or whatever, and he constantly says no. And he doesn't care if everybody in the school very often hates him or they're being mean to him, but he always chooses the right thing, and he also chooses to forgive. So in that sense, Harry and Snape are good contrasting figures as well. You can say no to racism or to racist groups. You can choose to do the right thing.
To the people who are listening in, choose to say no to racism. Don't wait until somebody you love gets murdered by the Nazis.
Say no to racism every time.
So people, if you've listened all the way up to here, then maybe you would like to give the podcast a rating, 5-star rating, or share it with your friends. And follow it if you haven't been following it. If you're into Harry Potter, I'm sure you have friends who are also into Harry Potter and maybe also dislike Snape. You want to convince them?
Yeah, maybe we'll get a response to this one. I hope I've been nuanced enough.
So we had the first podcast about Harry Potter was bad-mouthing Dumbledore, saying how horrible it was, then in defense of Dumbledore, and now in defense of Snape. Okay, Anke, so thank you very much for coming on. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I will see you all next time. Bye everybody.